It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. I hope it does. And not such a mysterious time at all. It's actually, as expected, the Federal Reserve did not alter its policy when it comes to interest rates or bond buying. But, they're going to get there. Don't worry. They let us know. We'll tell you what you need to know about that. It's funny. I did get a bunch of questions from people that were asking about, should I change my asset allocation ahead of the Federal Reserve meeting? I'm like, no, you dingbat. No, don't do that. What you need to know about your asset allocation is the most important thing is that over the long term, that you consistently put money away to reach your financial goals and that you rebalance maybe once a year. That's about it. And as you get closer to needing your money, then you should change your allocation. You should use low-cost funds to achieve your allocation or exchange-traded funds. If you're going to have some stock stuff, that's really a little side hustle for you, like don't even include it. If you just want to put some stocks in the portfolio for fun, great, go do it. But this is not rocket science, Mark. Everyone wants to make it more complicated than it is. Why is that? I don't get it. Like, life is so complicated anyway, and you want to make it more complicated? Oh, and by the way, I've been listening to this new podcast that I really like. It is a great analogy for what I do and what Mark does here, that what we're trying to do is, as we say, take the mystery out of your financial life. Well, are you ready for this, Mark? Here's my big leap. I read about, I don't know if you saw it in the Times, Mark, but there is a podcast that is called, you ready for this? Maintenance Phase. And it is a podcast that basically debunks like fad dieting and weird nutritional stuff that's kind of wacky. And, you come to realize that all this stuff is kind of the same. Like, we do a number on ourselves in a variety of ways. Like, I don't have enough money, but maybe you do. Or, I don't like my body. Well, it's the one you were born with. Sometimes you can't change certain things. It just is. And there is not usually a magic solution to anything. There really isn't. It's usually less complicated than we all want to make it. And as a result, I'd just like to remind everybody that what Mark and I do here is, yes, we apply the fact that we are both certified financial planners, but most of what we're doing is giving you common sense financial advice. That's really it. And is that, Mark, we don't always get, sometimes we'll get a technical question, but would you say that most often people just need a little common sense kick in the booty? What do you think? Yeah, I really think that it's about all you need to consider is that most of the times it's just pretty easy stuff. Okay. Now, what can I tell you? I can tell you that we are broadcasting from the Sleep Number Virtual Studios. Now, listen, I'm just looking at the Sleep Number tagline, smart, effortless comfort. That's kind of how I want to be with my money. Smart, effortless comfort. How can you be smart and effortless and comfortable in your financial life? Send us your questions. It's so like that to me, it's like such an easy thing to do. So go to our website, jillonmoney.com. Just go there. And when you're there, you can click on the contact button and we would be happy to help you out. Really, truly be our delight. Let us know if you want to come on the air. Also, Mark will do the rest. Eileen wants to know about what she should do after selling her house. She says, I will be receiving a 6-figure amount. I deal with 3 banks, my old work credit union, and she's been with them for 20 years, but there's no banks close to her. Okay. She says, I also have Bank of America, been with them 15 years. And then there's a police and fire credit union, been with them for 10 years. I would eventually like to purchase another home down the road, eventually, maybe in a year, and would like to invest some of the money. Any suggestions of my 3 banks of where I should have the money wired to? I need to tell the settlement company as soon as possible. Appreciate your help. Okay, Eileen, if you're going to need this money in the next year, you're not investing it. No, you're not. I'm sorry. You can't. It is not worth it. You cannot take the risk. And, if you're, I don't know what you said, significant six figure, I don't know how much that means, but remember that FDIC insurance only covers 250,000 per depositor. So if it's more than 250, then maybe you want to split it up. But if you're going to need this money in the next year, no investing. All right, let's see. This is from Kyle, who says he enjoys the podcast. He listens daily. Yay. If you want to listen to our podcast, just go to our website, jillonmoney.com, and subscribe. Okay. Here's Kyle's question. He says, I have an opportunity to become a shareholder in the private equity company, and I need help determining how much I should invest. His current company is a private equity company. He's being sold to another private equity company. He's a shareholder in the current one. He's got shares worth 100 grand. His original investment was 20. He can reinvest into the new company should he invest the full 100 or reinvest a small or larger amount. Seems like a once or twice in a lifetime opportunity since he's not an executive or an accredited investor, and these opportunities are not usually available. Okay, ready for the situation? He and his spouse, they are 35. They've got one young child. Gross income, $200,000. Household expenses, only 60 grand. They've got $500,000 in retirement accounts, mostly Roth. Ooh, you're going to be loving that. 225 in a brokerage account, 215 home equity, 55 in cash, and they've got some cash value in a universal life insurance policy. Ugh, why do you have that? Okay, they got they got two newer vehicles, HSA and a little bit of retirement of education savings. Okay, so first things first, you're in great shape. Second thing is you probably don't need a universal life insurance policy. So if you have $500,000 of insurance, I bet you need $1 million and probably $1 million each, and go get some term life insurance and stop screwing around. So I would get rid of that, number one. Now let's look at how much he's got. So going back, he's got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Say he's got about 900,000. Mark, do you want him to take the 100 grand and plow it into the new co, or do you want to take a portion of that? Any particular bent that you're going to take? Mark says he wants to do 80,000. I think that he's accumulating a lot of money. Okay. He's got annual gross income of 200 grand. So if he's going to look back and be like, no, I should have done it, I'll let him drift up a little higher. So you can put the 100 grand in, and as far as I'm concerned, because I think by the end of this, let's call it in a year from now, he's going to basically have $1 million, and then he'd have 100,000 that is invested in, and I'm not even including that as an asset that's going to be available to him anytime soon. I'm fine with 100. Shoot us a note back if you have a question, and it has a lot to do with just your cash flow and your ability to save money. So I think you're fine, and just don't use that $100,000 as part of your retirement planning. Pretend it does not exist. It is not part of your net worth. Okay, and maybe it'll be like $1 gazillion, but let's not count on it. You're listening to Jill on Money. If you have a financial question, just go to jillonmoney.com and you can hit the contact button. While you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are delighted that you are joining us. We are the program that tries to take the mystery out of your financial life. And some of you send us questions via email, some from our website, from jillonmoney.com. But when you ask very complicated questions, it makes me think that maybe you need to perhaps engage someone else. And the someone else you may want to engage is our sponsor, Facet Wealth. Facet Wealth provides financial planning to lots of different kinds of people. So it's not just the richy, rich. It is people who have just a lot of questions and problems and are accumulating money and want to know what to do next. Facet does goal-based financial planning, and you get this planning done from a certified financial planner, a dedicated one, who puts your interests first. So if you think you could benefit from a more sophisticated look rather than just calling a show, go to facetwealth.com, facetwealth.com. Okay, let's get to one of your questions. On the line next, we have Susan from New York. Hey, Susan, what can we do for you?
Hi, Jill. Thank you so much for having me. I'm calling you because I'm looking for advice on how to preserve my IRA account value. I'm 60 now and working at a job earning much less. And I want to see what I could do to preserve that money and make sure that it's there when I need it for retirement.
I love that you're still working because, we've been getting a lot of people in their 50s who are not working. And I don't know, I am, in my mid 50s. I can't relate, but you're still working. Tell me, are you married, partnered, single? What do you got in your life?
I'm married. My husband is considerably older than I am. He is taking Social Security and working as he can, but I'm the main breadwinner in the family.
Wait a minute. How much older?
11 years.
Uh-oh. Tell him you're trading him in for two 35-and-a-half-year-olds.
He's a great guy. He really is.
All right. So you love him. Big deal. Okay. So he's retired. He collects Social Security. How much is his Social Security?
It's about $18,000 a year because he took it early, but he does work as well when he can, contract work.
Okay. And approximately, how much does he bring in?
I would say last year was a tough year, as we know.
Of course.
So it was about $23,000 altogether.
Wow. Even during last year, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, you said you're making less money. How much are you earning?
This year, I will earn about $75,000. Last year, it was about $32,500 because of unemployment and getting into the job market late.
Sure. I got it. Okay. Now tell us a little bit about your savings between the two of you. So let's do you first. You mentioned you have an IRA. So how much is in your IRA account?
The IRA is worth about, right now, about $820,000.
Great. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Okay. Mm-hmm. Does your husband also have an IRA?
He does. His is about, I believe, $120,000 right now.
Okay. Any money that's not in retirement assets, like just a plain old taxable account?
A small regular investment account of about $15,000. Emergency savings, we're just starting to build that back up again. It's about $12,000 right now.
Okay, great. Now, when you said, you're making 75 and last year, let's say he made 40-ish, can you guys live on that? Do you believe that you could actually kind of count on that as far as your future needs? What do you think's going on for your retirement needs?
Well, I think that it's a squeeze. It's hard to say because we've been living the last couple of years on less. And after tax, there's quite a bit taken out of the $75,000. So I think we might need more than that, more than what we're earning right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your intention in terms of retirement age-wise?
I plan to work till at least 65, hopefully longer. Mm-hmm. I will be open to other opportunities in terms of employment that may get me back up to the pay scale that I had prior to being laid off.
And if you look at the 75 now, are you making retirement contributions or can you not afford to right now?
That's a great question. Right now, I haven't been, and the company I'm working for does not currently have a match. So I'm pretty much just working with what I have in that account already. I'd like to start contributing at some point, though. Mm-hmm.
Are you pulling money out of your husband's IRA? I'm just trying to figure out the timing here. Was he subject to required minimum distributions, or is he able to wait till 72 because of the Secure Act that passed?
Yes, he's able to wait. So he has a little more time.
Okay, good. So let's go and do like big picture stuff. House is worth how much?
House is probably worth at least $650,000.
Okay. Is there a mortgage remaining on it?
Yes, we just refinanced for $275,000, and the rate is 2.85.
Good God! And is that a 15 or a 30?
It's actually a 20. So we reduced our term, and we're at the same payment.
And intention is we're going to stay in this house. We love this house because obviously you would not have refinanced, right?
Right. Also, we know we're going to be here at least another 5 years, maybe longer.
All right, that sounds good. And when you say maybe longer, you have an idea of is there something percolating in terms of a game plan in the future? In terms of like, are you moving away? Are you like, I'm done with New York? It's too expensive. It's too cold. Are you going to go to Florida? Let's be honest. That's the big
No,
question.
not Florida, but but we are considering that option of moving at some point, but nothing definitive right now.
Okay, fair enough. And when you look at your current allocation of these two retirement accounts, this is about $1 million, which is great. What are you invested in right now? Who's managing it? Are you doing it yourself? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm doing it myself, and I would say I'm probably not great at it. I'm doing okay, but there's a lot in tech. There's some in diversified funds. But I'm wondering if I should diversify further, get into bond funds or international funds.
Mm-hmm,
Also
mm-hmm.
thinking about the future and access to this money, thinking about should I do a Roth conversion at some point so I have liquid money that's not going to be taxed later. Just wondering about all those.
You got a lot going on, girly. Okay, so first thing is when you look at your full retirement age, what is the Social Security benefit that you would be entitled to approximately?
Well, the full retirement age is 67, and
Yeah.
that would be about $26.50 a month.
Okay, $26.50 a month. All right. You will have about $32,000 in your Social Security, and added to his 18,000, that gives you 50 grand a year. And what you're saying to me is you actually need, you need more than that. It sounds to me like you think you might need like, at least another 50 or 60 grand a year to manage your lifestyle. Is that right?
It's just hard to say. If I move, it'll probably reduce.
Yeah.
But if we stay, probably so. Yeah.
Okay. Because here's the problem as I see it. You asked a simple question, and you see, this is why it's so good to come on the air with us. Because your problem is not an allocation question. It's an actual total amount that you have available for retirement question. I know you got kicked in the ass and you got laid off. So this is not a judgment. I'm just going to give you sort of the blanket advice here. And that is that, when I look at $1 million portfolio, and presuming you don't pull anything out, although he will be forced to start pulling some money out, even if we grew that, even if the markets continue to do pretty well and we got you retired at age 67, even with all of that, let's pretend that you were able to get $1.5 million by the time you're 67. Okay, now at that point, I would suggest that you probably could only pull out about 3, maybe 3.5% a year. Okay. Now, that would give you an extra 45, 50 grand a year. The problem, of course, is that number that I'm giving you is taxable. So it's not going to give you the same amount of money that you were truly seeking. We'll get back to your questions in just a second. During the break, hop onto the website, JillOnMoney.com, and check out all the stuff that I've been writing. I've been going crazy. Very busy fall for me. JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
Let's get right back to our caller, Susan from New York, here on Jill on Money. Remember, if you've got a question, shoot us a note. All right, let's get back to Susan. If possible, what I would really encourage you guys to do is to save. I'm more concerned with you guys actually having money in liquid savings. So having that emergency reserve fund build back up, like you said you were doing. The investment account, the 15 grand, what's in there?
Just one stock that's doing really well.
Like
Apple.
what?
Apple.
You have, okay, so you have Apple, so you're never going to sell that. You'll die with that. And so I want that emergency reserve fund to be built up. I mean, you got to have like 50 grand in there by the time you retire. There's no doubt in my mind. Okay. Now, in terms of the money that you have invested, where is that money held? Is that at a big fund house? Where
Yes.
do you, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is that like a Vanguard Fidelity-ish kind of place?
TD.
TDA. Okay, great. So I think that what you're going to need to look at is, how am I going to invest my $1,000,000 today and try to be more reasonable in the risk that I take? Because it sounds like you're a little bit of a risk taker to me, which is probably why you were able to like get out there and get another job and kick some butt, which by the way is great. It is also dangerous at this point because if that $1,000,000 portfolio just ends up being, one and a half, which I think is possible. That's great. But if at the moment you're about to retire, it's not 1.5, it's 1.2 because we're in the middle of a bear market, that would be really bad. Here's the choices for you. I think that you could probably take the money that's in the retirement account, the two accounts, and try to really plan for a little bit more of a balance. So if it's like mostly in stock and stock mutual funds, then I would really be looking and saying, first of all, individual stocks, probably not the smartest thing for you right now. And if you've made a ton of money, fantastic. Take the gain and move on because it's not taxable to you, right? You're just going to do it inside the retirement account. And then I would think that you really have to start looking at if you are truly like 100% stocks, like I'd love to get you more to at least a 70-30, which is a great growth portfolio. So I think that you should be working towards that. Now, you could add a bond fund, an intermediate term bond fund, but whatever money you think your husband's going to need to take out at age 72 for his required distribution, that money has to be in cash at the age when he is 72, then that money has to be in cash. Okay, so you can't be messing around with that. So in some respects, his portfolio should be lower risk than yours. And then I think the real question is, there's a ton of money in this house. Knowing where you live, I don't think that value is going down. I think what is most likely for you guys would be that you're working at least to your age 65, hopefully 67, if you still like what you're doing. If your cash flow allows, I'd like you to beef up that emergency reserve fund first, then start using any sort of retirement account. And frankly, I don't really care. I am fine with you putting money into the IRA. You could probably do a Roth IRA just because your income is not, it's funny. It's like you're not in a high bracket, but you do live in New York. So I know you get hammered in some respects, but you're in the 22% tax bracket, between all of your income. That's fine with me. If you want to make that a Roth, that's fine. It's not imperative. What's most imperative is that you keep working and save. And then I think that you're going to really be an interesting place because I think if things are way better than expected and you stay in touch with us and, all of a sudden it's a few years from now and you're like, Jill, you're such a Debbie Downer. My $1 million is 1.4. I'm making a ton of money. Life is good. And I really want to retire when I'm 65. And then we can talk about that. On the other hand, if it's the downbeat scenario, then you might say, you know what? I don't want to retire yet. And if you're willing to do that, if you feel good about that and you're willing to say, I might have to work a little bit longer, 67 maybe is the right age. Maybe that is the right age. And I think that I think you're fine. Like you have the assets. It's a question of like the wants. If you love living in this house so much and in this area so much that you really want to make it work, you're going to work longer. And if you're like, you know what, I had it, you're not going to move to Florida, but you're going to move to, someplace that's cheaper. Or you're just going to downsize. You might say, I live in a really nice suburban house and I'm going to move a little bit outside of this area and pay lower property taxes. And just instead of being in a $600,000-$700,000 house, maybe I'll move into a $400,000 nice condo. And then you'll have that cash available. But we need a little bit more of liquid assets to help get you where you need to go. That's what I think.
Can I ask you one more question?
You can ask me 2 more if you'd like.
Oh, thank you. I do have a decent chunk of money in that investment account in cash right now. In other words, it's not invested.
Oh, good.
What do you suggest I do with that?
If you have a lot of cash in there, if there's like a ton of cash, then get it to work and go buy yourself like an intermediate term bond fund.
It's like over 100,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. There's too much money in cash in there.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So then so that's a perfect place to start diversifying.
Okay.
And that's a great way to say, you know what, and before the end of the year, I'm going to put $10,000 every month into an intermediate term bond fund, a TD Ameritrade, really anything that is just an index.
And how do I find that? How do I know?
Let's do it right now. Let's look. Hold on a second. Mark, are you doing this with me? We have, okay. Sometimes we have like a little bit of a race. So, well, first of all, you can through TD Ameritrade buy the Vanguard Total Bond Market Index, which is very easy to do.
Oh, cool.
Really? Is that right? Okay. So Mark and I came up with the same one. They have an exchange traded fund, or you can, it's the exchange traded fund. What's the symbol here? BND? Is that what it is, Mark? If I remember? BND. I have good memory. Let's use that. And by the way, the price of that has gone down, which shockingly never happens when I give advice to buy things. So, so what I would say is that's a really easy way it's 4 basis points, 0.04% to own that. And, if you look at just the yield over like comparing it with the money market, it is a much better yield. Now, it can go down in value, but you're going to hold it for the long term. So that's what I would use. That's what I would use. All right.
Thank you so much.
And when the cash flow allows, I want you to save some money in the emergency reserve fund, maybe put some more money in retirement. But I think that, like I said, people get knocked around in these terrible events, and you've been knocked around financially. You're standing, you got another job. Life is going to be much better in the next 12 months than the previous 12 months, okay?
Thank you, Jill. Appreciate it.
If you, like Susan, need some financial guidance, just send us your question. Go to the website, jillonmoney.com, click the contact button, and we'll get it. Okay, we'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are broadcasting from the Sleep Number Virtual Studios. Mark, would you say you're a good sleeper or not such a good sleeper? Wait a second. You didn't tell me this. Mark said he's invested in a new pillow. What kind of pillow, pray tell? So Mark has invested in a Casper pillow. How much did this cost you? $80. Okay. So are you a soft pillow guy or a hard pillow guy? I have a similar pillow. I think I have a Tempur-Pedic, but it's also very heavy. And I had to get a king size pillow because my friend Christina, who's a designer, is like, oh, I found the best sheets for you. Anyway, it's like they're king size pillowcases that she got for me so I buy this pillow. My pillow cost $250. What a moron I am. But it is so firm that I feel like I'm going to like basically dislocate my shoulder when I move it around. My sister-in-law has her husband would say, she likes to sleep on a board with her head on a shelf. That's kind of me too. But invest in your sleep, people. It's very important. I don't want to go all Ariana Huffington on you, but it is good to sleep well. And you know what I don't miss, Mark, in my post-COVID period? I don't miss when I was woken up at 4:00 in the morning because the markets were rolling over in the middle of the night. I don't miss that at all. I'm happy sleeping to my 5 a.m., 5:30. But that's about all I can get to. Mark and I often have our best conversations via text early. I would say we have many more conversations before 7 a.m. than after 7 p.m. Agreed? Mark says 5 to 7 a.m. is his happy time. Me too. We do a lot of work at that time. Okay. If you have a financial question or a sleep prescription, then shoot us a note. We're very easily found. JillOnMoney.com is our website. Click on the contact button, or you can just send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Okay. Brock writes, hi, Jill. For as long as I can remember, I've managed my retirement accounts and been solely responsible for choosing, rebalancing, and monitoring my own investments. I understand that my contributions are the primary driving factor for my long-term success. I'm glad that you understand this because I think that's great. I should preface this by letting you know that I'm tired of keeping up with my investments. That's fine. He goes on to write, don't get me wrong. I feel like I've been pretty good at it. Probably saved on fees and costs by doing it this way. Is it time to partner with an advisor? What are your thoughts on target date funds? I keep hearing other podcast hosts saying it's okay to put the bulk of your savings in these accounts. I just keep thinking that the fees are high for the products. And if I pick the right asset allocation, I can achieve my own target date fund for less cost. However, it would be enticing to have a fund or funds and be left with a set it, forget it mindset. Your thoughts? Well, why can't you do set it and forget it with just plain old index funds and rebalance once a year? What do you think, Mark? Can I give him that advice? Is that okay? Mark says that's what he does. I would do that. I think that is totally doable. And listen, certain target date funds, I think the Vanguard target date funds are pretty cheap, right, Mark? Okay, so target date funds can be cheap depending where you are, but it's true. Index funds are cheaper. So what if you just did this? Let's see. Mark, what's your allocation? Let's give Brock your allocation. You've got an S&P 500 index fund. You've got an intermediate term bond fund. Is that what you have? What else? You got an international fund, small cap, and that's it. So those 4 funds. Okay. Now, let's see. How old is he? Did he say? He didn't say. Okay. Let's just pretend that you're a balanced investor. Here's a way to think about it. You say, I'm balanced, presuming you do all the other stuff right. Now, take your 50% for your fixed position and just put it in an intermediate term bond fund. If you want to get cute, you could add something else, but just put it in an intermediate term bond fund. 50%. Boom, done. Now, for the other 3 stock funds, Mark, what's your allocation? U.S., international, small. What's your breakdown? Okay, so can we make the math a little easier for the guy? So let's do 10-10, right? 10 small, 10 international, 30 U.S. index or extended market index. Boom, you're done. Now, Brock, what you want to do is if you can do an auto rebalance, great. If you can't, put in a little note for yourself, December 1st, annual rebalancing. Done. I think that's it. I think that's all you need to do. When Mark's telling me when he does his, when do you do yours every year? Okay, so Mark says he does it on January 1, his New Year's Day tradition. I mean, the only difference might be like if you're getting older and you need some money in cash, just, you may want to do something about that. Maybe there's some tax loss harvesting. I don't know. I don't know what accounts these are in, but you get the gist, right? I mean, it is not that much harder than creating that kind of allocation and that kind of annual rebalancing. I used to be all in. I'm like, oh, you got to do quarterly rebalancing. I'm off that. I'm totally off that. I mean, because it's just like no one needs to do it that much. I guess the one thing is that if you have some company stock, that it can be useful. But anyway, you get where we're going, gang. It doesn't have to be so hard. So nice and easy. All right. Thanks for writing. All right. If you've got a financial question, you got a personal finance question, you've got an economic question, you got a tax question, give us a shout. Go to JillOnMoney.com, click the contact button, and we'll get your note. Don't forget to tell us if you want to come on the air. We'd love to have you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Jill on Money. Before we head to the end of the first hour, before you guys take a big stretch, if you're listening online, you can do that at YouTube. But if you're listening in the car, maybe don't take a stretch just now. I really got, by the way, I've been driving more now that it's post-COVID and I'm actually out and about. I hate it. I can't wait till self-driving cars are, also known as buses, buses without the Metro card. I can't wait till that. I hate, hate, hate driving. I'll hand my keys over willingly to whatever robot wants to drive me. Okay, let's get a question in. This is from Andrea, who wants a little guidance on her financial situation. She makes about $94,000 a year, and she's got $134,000 in student loan debt. She's in the public service payment forgiveness plan. All right. However, she's got $17,000 of credit card debt. Uh-oh. Most of the debt I've paid down successfully from 25 grand, which I accumulated after a parent's debt. I've got $10,000 in deferred comp, 3,500 in a Roth. She owns a home. She has $165,000 left on the loan. She's owned it for 5 years. I'm at my wit's end with my debt. I'm considering filing bankruptcy and I need advice. Mark, what should she do? I don't think bankruptcy is going to be the answer either. I am telling you what I think you probably are going to have to do, because she has 17. Why does she have $17,000 in debt? I wonder if so is that all from this parent's death? I don't know. If you have a house, okay, maybe what you should do, I don't know what it's worth. You've owned it for 5 years, but a lot of houses have gone up in value. I might look at refinancing that house and getting a 30-year loan and taking out enough money to pay off your debt. And that's what I'm hoping can work for you, Andrea. I think that's the first piece of this. If not that, I want you to give us a holler back. I might blow out of the deferred comp, Mark. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I might. Or maybe take a loan against it, at least to sort of crack down on some of this. So do not go crazy at your wit's end. You own an asset. Let's see if we can make something happen with that asset. That's what I'm hoping for. Because it does stand to reason, Mark, that if she bought the house 5 years ago, it's worth more. And hopefully there's a little equity in there she can tap. Give us a holler back. We want to help you out, and we'll get you on the air also. Okay, you're listening to Jill on Money. When we return, a special guest star enters the house. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2 of Jill on Money, and we are delighted that you're joining us. Well, often in our second hour, we have a special guest star. And our special guest star who joined us in the Sleep Number virtual studios is Brent Weiss. He's been on the program before. You've heard him. He is a certified financial planner. He's the chief evangelist, which is the dorkiest title ever, but I'm still calling him that. He's really a financial planner, okay? He works for this company, Facet Wealth, which sponsors this show. Now, the funny thing is, it's a little bit of a convoluted relationship. I understand. You know, I got to know Brent through someone else and I was trying to understand what his model was at Facet Wealth, because I kind of dig it. I used to be a financial planner myself 100 years ago, like in practice, not just a CFP as a certification. And I like the idea that there was this organization that was trying to provide financial planning for more and more people. And when I spoke to Brent and met him, I was kind of into the fact that they do flat fee, conflict-free planning. And we had him on the show a couple times. This was before they were sponsors, right, Mark? I think so. And we really liked it, and we liked his style. You know, I think his idea being that, and the company's idea is that, you know, if you do goal-based financial planning and you get your advice from a dedicated certified financial planner, not just some rando person in a call center, you're going to be a more satisfied consumer of financial services. I think that makes sense. So the other piece of this that I think is important is often a lot of my friends who are still in the industry, they do continue to have wealth or account minimums. I'm not that into that, Mark, I have to say. And I was never good at that. Even when I had account minimums at my old firm, I never kept to it. So I think it's great that there is an organization out there that doesn't do that, that meets you where you are. So if you're interested, you can go check out facetwealth.com. And now, And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a great topic for today. Brent proposed this, and I was very into it. We are talking about the psychology of money. Here is the first part of our interview with Brent Weiss. I was just saying on one of our pods, our recent shows, I was saying that I was with somebody at dinner who said to me that I have some friends who are getting divorced and like they're really having a hard time coming to grips with the fact that they kind of ignored their financial lives and let their spouses take care of that. So I just want to talk a little bit about the psychology behind the type of person that just doesn't want to deal with money. What can you tell us about that type and how we can help that person overcome that hurdle?
Yeah, so I'm going to take a quick step back and really just set the framework for the psychology of money and why it's so fascinating to me. And it's one of those things people always, when we think about finance, we think about these like equations and formulas that you input some information and voila, magically you have your plan and success in the future. But all of a sudden we realize that everybody, like if you put two people in the exact same situation, why will they make very different decisions? That's the psychology of money. So the way I position this typically is that if I came to you and said, if there's one thing in your life that defines the outcomes that you make, the outcomes that you achieve financially, and literally one thing you can do today that can improve or increase your earning potential, improve how much you save, invest, the wealth you build, improve your credit score, reduce your debt, smarter, more informed decisions, would you be interested in learning more about it? Everybody goes, yes, of course. And it's actually the psychology of money. Right. And that's the hard part. So going to your question around what do you do when somebody has sort of, I'll call it a money disorder. And this is a good friend of mine, Dr. Brad Klontz, who's I think a psychologist and has this thing called money scripts. Right. And there's four main money scripts. And we'll get to the key point here. Money avoidance, money worship, money status, money vigilance.
Wait, say this again. I want to write those down. Wait, so the money scripts, let's do all four first. So let's start with, I'm going to say money avoidance. That's what we're going to start. But let's go. Right. So there's money avoidance. And then what's the next one?
Money worship.
Okay. I want to go through all these. This is so interesting. Okay. Next.
Money status. And money vigilance.
Okay, got it. Let's start with avoidance because that was the question that was put to me.
Bingo.
So tell me about money avoidance. What's going on there?
Money avoidance can come in. So first of all, so if you think about where we got sort of the personality we have today, you can thank your parents and your grandparents for this. It is passed down from generation to generation. Literally by the age of 7, we've sort of coded in our brain these unconscious beliefs about money. So number one, understand that the way you think about money today was actually formed when we were, wearing floaties at the pool kind of thing. But you can change that. So money avoidance is really for people who may have had a bad experience with money when they were younger. It could have been the way their parents acted around money. Maybe their parents or grandparents had a lot of debt, or they didn't talk about money at the dinner table, which most people don't, by the way. Or they had some major issues growing up, or maybe they struggle with money and they want to avoid it. Like money is a bad thing, right? It's not a good, or it's not an empowering thing in their life. And so they want to avoid it. So to your point around the question around why are there people that don't want to do anything with money, is because either they're afraid to do something with money. They've had bad experiences with money. It's sort of it creates a negative emotional feeling for them. And so they go, well, instead of dealing with it, which is really difficult in many cases, we choose to avoid money. We avoid the hard conversations. We avoid making the big decisions of spending less and saving more and investing and making smart decisions. It's just a more challenging thing for people that are, I'll say, money avoiders, are having that issue around money.
What do you think we can do to help people who feel like, yeah, I did have a bad experience, but what can we do as we talk to these folks, Mark and I hear from them? How can we help them embrace the topic without, sending them to therapy for, a year?
Well, yeah. Well, I will say this. There are certifications around what I'll say is like money therapy, but it's really like counseling. I can make an argument that everybody, especially now, in the middle of COVID, really, I hope we're coming out of COVID-19, could use a little bit of therapy or counseling or something just to get our mindsets healthy again before we come out of this darn thing. So there's two key points here. The most important thing that people need to feel comfortable talking about money is this idea of called psychological safety, right? They need to feel that they're in an environment where they can share their ideas and not be judged and not be, there's a lot of shame that comes around money because there are two things we're never taught in life: money and relationships. What are the two things that impact our lives every single day? Money and relationships. So we all feel that we should know everything that there is to know about money and relationships. The fact of the matter is we don't. So the number one most important thing that all of us can do, especially in sort of the financial services community, is to create, I'll call it a safe space. I know that can sometimes have a negative connotation, but an environment in which people feel comfortable sharing their challenges and really their hopes and their dreams and the things that scare them about money. If you create that space, people then go, hey, you know what? I'm not being judged. I'm welcome here. I'm open to having a conversation. And then from there, we have to encourage people to really find awareness around their psychology of money, right? Their mental models of money, how they think, feel, and act about money. And those are the first two steps I believe will lead to success.
I love that. I like the idea of creating a place where you're not judged. I always said that to Mark. Like, I'm not interested in finger wagging and making people feel bad about what decisions they've made previously. We want to make sure that they feel good about just opening up and letting us know what we can do better to help them out. We'll get back to our interview with Brent Weiss in just a moment. If you have a financial question, maybe for Brent or maybe for me and Mark, just send us a note. Go to our website, jillonmoney.com, click the contact button, and we will get that note. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are in the middle of a interview with Brent Weiss from Facet Wealth, the sponsor of this show. Brent is a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, and we've been talking about the psychology of money. I think what's always interesting, I wrote a book about this, right? The dumb things smart people do with their money. And I always think the reason I love what I do so much is not so much that I am a math head, which I am. I admit it. I think the part of the idea of covering business, finance, personal finance is that the emotions are so prevalent. It's not like the answers are that hard. When people say to me, I'm not good with numbers. Well, can you add? Can you subtract? Can you use your phone to at least multiply? You might have to divide a few times, but it's not much more complicated than that. So what is complicated is that we get in our own way. That's it. And so when I think about what it is that prevents people from doing the things they really need to do and want to do, more often than not, it is about ourselves, that we become the problem. So in this next part of our interview with Brent Weiss, we are going to talk about this concept of status and what that means. So here is the next part of Brent Weiss. Sometimes the avoidance can actually be a tiny bit, to me, hooked up. I'm going to skip one, is into the status. And here's what I think. Again, let's use this idea of there is a non-working spouse, been responsible for taking care of family, and now there's a breakup. But, part of the avoidance was having, basically not dealing with issues of money and maybe saying like, but I want to maintain the status that my station should afford me. So let's talk about money status. What's that about?
The easiest way to think about money status is when someone equates their net worth or their self-worth to their net worth, right? So money, wealth, savings, investments, the things they own, material goods. By the way, this is not to say that's a bad thing to own nice houses and nice cars. It's just when people start attaching that, they make that sort of the external, I'll say, visualization of their own self-worth. That's what money status is. So it's not a very healthy thing for the most part, because you see this in people who spend a lot of money, they buy nicer things because it's the external manifestation of how they feel about themselves.
But if you get that person that comes to you as a financial planner, how do you get them off that? I mean, to me, that's like the classic part of, you need some therapy. So what do you do in that case where someone is interested? I mean, we had this wild, blow your mind experience where we had a guy who had not so much, it was not even exactly status, but it was like, I've already made this essential choice of putting myself in a certain status. And so I have to maintain it. But it wasn't like, it wasn't so snobby. It was just like, I want to be in this circle.
Well, there's a really important point to make here when you think about, so there's a couple things at play. We have to unpack it, right? Number one is this idea of the keeping up with the Joneses. You're in a certain neighborhood, your neighbors are doing certain things. The first thing you realize there is not everybody's making smart decisions. There's this falsehood that we think that other people are always making smart, informed decisions with their money, when in reality, that's not the case. So number one, we're thinking about that. Number two, trying to, I'll say, fit in, but to be on the same level as those around you isn't necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes, you end up being like the 5 people you spend the most time with in life. So maybe surrounding yourself with people that are successful or whatever it is. You just have to understand, I share with my clients, the first thing you want to do is define what enough means for you. All right, you can call it abundance, whatever it is, but what's enough? What is enough to create financial security so you no longer worry about money? What is enough to create financial independence? One of the hardest things, and really the most important things that people can do, is to keep the goalposts from moving. Right? Every time we get a raise or we make more money or something else happens, the goalpost, and we'll call the goalpost retirement or some goal or life milestone, keeps getting further and further away. Because every time we increase our spending, we have to save more to replace that income later in life. So sometimes it's defining what enough is. What is abundance? What really works for us, not the people around us? We have a tendency to anchor on the people that are closest to us, right? People in our neighborhoods, people in our communities, people at work. And what we really need to do is do the work to our sort of internally and personally and say, what really matters to me? What are my beliefs and values? And how do I align a decision with my money to the things that matter most to me?
What do you do if you feel like one person in a couple that comes to see you is moving the goalpost, but the other one isn't? I mean, that puts a lot of pressure also, right?
Of course it does. It's very hard. I mean, this is one of the hardest things. If you go back to 2 things we don't learn about money and relationships, put them together, that's not a good recipe or a good cocktail, right?
Yeah.
I think the first thing I would share to people is, especially for couples that come and work with either me or one of my CFP professionals at Facet Wealth, is first of all, congratulations. Like, you've taken arguably the most important step, which is going out there and saying, hey, maybe we're struggling with this conversation one-on-one at home. Let's actually bring in a professional who, by the way, the CFP board now requires financial planners to be trained in the psychology of money, understanding their own biases, but also being able to help individuals and couples better navigate this together too. So number one, having a third party can be very, very beneficial. The most important thing we do is we sit down and we actually talk about, and I go through this with my clients, is I have them independently of one another, not together, so there's no influence, is write down their beliefs, their values, and what they want to achieve with money. And then we bring it together, and it's my job to create that environment for that safe and comfortable conversation. That's the first step. If you create an open environment for conversation, you'll really start to change the relationship for that couple, but ultimately between their relationship and money.
It's so interesting. It's so funny because, like, the certified financial planner, the person who is put in this position really does have to have a technical expertise of the material, but also, I think it's really smart of the CFP board to say, you really need to understand this, because so many of the money issues are emotional. And if you don't understand that, you're really going to have a hard time giving good advice. It's just people aren't going to take your advice. So I want to talk about the money worship. How does that differ from the status?
So the primary difference is that those that worship money, and by the way, it sounds worse than it is, right? So none of these are inherently good or bad. They're meant to be tools for awareness. So you understand, okay, this is, and you get a score, by the way, if you go take this, if you go to your mental wealth advisors, you can get a score on these things and say, hey, do I have an issue here? Do I have to look into it? Or am I sort of in the safer area here?
Hold on a second. I just want to do that. Your mental
wealth advisors.com.
Advisors.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done this myself. I have my clients do it. I've had my parents do it. So we can say, hey, when we're making decisions emotionally, where are we making these decisions from? those that worship money believe that money can create happiness. Like money is the source of happiness. But so if you think about money worship versus the money status piece, right? Status is like my money defines my worth. In the money worship, it's like money defines happiness. It doesn't mean it has to be an external display. They just think that more money will create happiness, right? If I make more money, if I save more money, if I have more money, I'll be happier. And the fact of the matter is, and I think we've all heard about these studies that, happiness, like increasing happiness starts to slow down about $75,000 to $100,000 of income. And then there really isn't some, exponential jump in happiness that's created by more money. There's a level that creates security and safety for you and your family. That's critically important. But at that point, that's where it starts to level off. And that's why if you're worshiping money, thinking money will bring you happiness, really the point is take a step back and go, okay, what really makes me happy in life? Is it my job? Is it my community? Is it my family? Is it my kids? Is it whatever that is? And then figure out how can we make decisions around money that align with the things that matter most to us.
We'll get back to Brent Weiss in just a moment. Now, if you've got a financial question, anything on your mind, feeling a little pressure about what's going on in your financial life, go to our website, jillonmoney.com, and you can hit the contact button. We'll get your note. While you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are trying to take some of the mystery out of your financial life. And we do that by answering your questions. You can send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. But even better, just go to our website, jillonmoney.com. Bookmark it because you're going to want to come back to it. I promise. And if you, while you're there, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you subscribe to our podcasts? One is called Jill on Money and the other is called Eye on Money. What is the beauty of Eye on Money, ladies and gentlemen? I'll tell you. It is Mark Talercio. Yep, executive producer Mark Talercio appears on the Eye on Money podcast. I know, Mark, I like listening to it more when you're on the air. I really do. Like, it's a great break from listening to my own voice. How do you feel about editing your own voice? Yeah, Mark says that took a little while to get over that. Okay, let's get back to our interview with Brent Weiss. We're talking about a concept I'd never heard of called money script. Here is Brent Weiss from Facet Wealth. So when you think about like what's your money script or, finding out your money script, I mean, this is, when you think about this, it is a way to kind of almost broach this with your clients, right? I mean, so the good news is that if you say to your clients, hey, take this, now you're opening up a conversation in a way that's kind of neat because they're going through it themselves. Do you find that most people kind of say, oh, well, of course that's me, or like, no, that's not me?
First of all, most people, I'd say, I'm making up a number, 90% of people go, holy cow, like this makes a ton of sense to me. 10%, which are generally, which will tell you more about their personality, or more rebellious in the answers. I don't think that's right. That's sort of the way I do it. Like, this is baloney. But what I can share with you, the most meaningful conversations I've had with clients in my careers. I'm coming up on 20 years in this career. I've helped hundreds of clients myself. We have, thousands of clients here at Facet. The most meaningful conversations I've ever had is when clients are open to exploring this part of the relationship. They come back, because one of the first things I actually do in my relationship with the clients is between one of the first meetings and the follow-up meeting, and say, here's what I want you to do. At the next meeting, I want you to write down, when we're sitting here 3 or 5 years from today, what has to happen in your life for you to look back and go, wow, that was a really successful 3 to 5 year period. And go, but here's the catch. You can't mention money. Because what I want them doing is thinking differently about life, right? While I truly believe that every decision is a financial decision because it touches money, I want them thinking about like what matters to me professionally, personally, in my relationship with my kids and my community. When they come back and we start talking about that and we dive into the psychology of money, why they make the decisions they do. I've had some of the most, I mean, the kind of thing where the clients come back and go, I've never thought about this before. Or the husband or the wife or the partner comes back and goes, you've never told me that before, which is a great place to start because now I actually know what they're trying to achieve and I can help them make better decisions with their money.
So we've now talked about 3 of the 4 money scripts. Let's talk about this is the money vigilance. Let's talk about that.
So money vigilance is very much I'll say my money script, my money personality, right? Because it says, and this is from, I'm just reading this here, it means you're more alert, watchful, and concerned about your financial health. I'm a financial planner. I'm supposed to be doing this, right?
Yeah,
so maybe
of course.
Maybe that's why I became a financial planner in the first place, because I'm watchful and concerned about my money. And I said, hey, why don't I help people, make smarter, more informed decisions, live the life they want, all these kinds of amazing things when it comes to money. Money vigilance tends to lead towards sort of higher scores of financial health, right? Emergency fund, better savings rates, better investing, higher wealth, et cetera. Although it can lead to much higher stress around money because you're much more watchful, you're much more concerned about it. So there's like pros and cons, right? They're like double-edged swords. So for me, money vigilance nails it for me. It's also my profession and my trade. But I also do have a little bit more stress and anxiety when it comes to money, because I think about it a lot. Am I making the right decisions? I should be making, I'm a CFP. I should be making smarter decisions. But that's the money vigilance piece of it.
But you really kind of want someone to become money vigilant in a way that works in conjunction with helping them achieve their goals and objectives, right?
Yeah. I mean, everything in balance. I mean, even all I want to do, I think the most important thing for people out there, for people listening to say, gee, psychology of money, it's this like intangible thing. And we don't like intangible things as being, as human beings. The number one thing you can do is actually just be aware of what's actually driving the decisions you make with money. None of these 4 money scripts is either good or bad, but not having awareness is a bad thing. Understanding what is driving your decisions, how you score on these things, do I have a problem with it? And then actually looking at this before you make very big money decisions, so you make smarter, more informed decisions. That's really the most important piece of all of this. I do believe having some level of vigilance, yes, that is important to saving appropriately, investing appropriately, avoiding the speculation and the gambling that's occurring today we're seeing in the markets. That will lead to higher levels of wealth and financial health, but none of these independently is good or bad.
Now, so, I mean, I'm looking at this guy's website, this organization, and essentially, are they not competitors of Facet Wealth?
So yes and no. I mean, I don't really look at the world as having competitors. I look at trying to find those in the community that believe what I believe, right? That unbiased, personalized financial advice that integrates with all facets of life is essential to living well. I think financial advice should be a fundamental right for people. So here's how I see this, okay? There's actually 2 things about psychology of money that consumers out there, listeners should be aware of. Number 1, the bias that a financial planner, a financial advisor brings to the relationship actually has a greater impact on the advice that is recommended. That's amazing to me. It shouldn't be that way. If you're the client, shouldn't your beliefs and values be the thing that's driving the advice? Actually, what they found is the biases that a financial advisor brings. So if they're not aware, which is why the CFP designation is so important, because now the CFP professionals have to go through that themselves, understand how their biases impact that. Number 2, and this has been shown for decades, the compensation model for a financial advisor impacts the advice they render, whether it's commissionable, whether it's an assets under management fee, whether it's a flat fee. So when I look at competition, I always go, well, I'm not going to sit here and rail against somebody. I'm going to stand for what I believe is a better way forward for 90% of American households. And that's why we have a flat fee, because we're trying to remove all of the conflicts of interest. We want unbiased, right? That means your planner is not biased. The advice they recommend is not biased. It's based upon what's best and right for you as the client.
Okay, we will get back to our interview with Brent Weiss in just a moment. If you wouldn't mind, how about you hop onto the old website, jillonmoney.com, and while you're there, you can read all the stuff I write, you can listen to old shows, you can watch TV segments, and check out the resource section. Mark does a great job with that. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are finishing up our conversation with Brent Weiss of Facet Wealth. Now, maybe you want to come on the air with us. If that's the case, if you want to be like Brent and join us in the Sleep Number virtual studio, all you need to do is send us an email, which is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Or if you're on the website, jillonmoney.com, just hit the contact button and then you'll get to us magically. So let's finish up our conversation with Brent. He's had a bit of a rocky 18 months here. And I was just sort of asking him some kind of, I guess, post-COVID questions. So we are concluding our interview with Brent Weiss. And on the other side of it, I'll answer one more question for this segment. Okay. So here is the conclusion of our interview with Brent. I want to ask you a little bit off the side of the desk question for you.
Sure.
Do you find that there are more people coming to you and asking you about how can I have greater choices later in my life or even sooner than later because of COVID? In other words, I've gone through something. I'm very moved by this experience and I want to change my life. Have you guys found that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Yeah.
It's been, I mean, look, the last 12 or 18 months, I think it's about 18 months now, which seems crazy, has been a great period of reflection for a lot of, I mean, that's why we're hearing about the great resignation. Now employers are saying the great retention. How do we keep our people? Well, treat them right, pay them fairly, treat them right, give them purpose. Yeah, absolutely. I will share this with you. And this is actually something I talk to our clients about all day long at Facet. When we're emotionally charged, and let's just all agree that COVID-19 has emotionally charged us either positively or negatively. All right, the last 18 months have been hard. I always caution my clients, I don't want to say avoid making very big financial decisions because we tend to make very poor financial decisions when we are emotionally charged. That doesn't mean you can't make them, right? So people out there who want to buy a house and go, well, the housing market is crazy. Should I do it? If it's part of your plan. It's just being aware that when we're emotionally charged, we tend to make, I'll say, less good decisions financially, and to just be aware of what might actually be driving the decision you're about to make financially. Because right now we're all a little on edge because of COVID-19, and that can impact the health of our financial decisions.
Okay, thanks again to Brent Weiss. He is from Facet Wealth, and they are the sponsor of this program. And they can be found at facetwealth.com. Mark, here's something exciting that's happening very soon. FAFSA season is opening October 1st. And, I know nobody likes to fill out financial aid forms, but you don't fill out the form, you don't complete the form, you don't get the moolah. So fill out the form. It's available October 1st. The deadline is, months in the future, but many states give money out on a first-come, first-served basis. So get it done. Get it done. Okay. Now, let's finish this off. This is Josh from New York who says, I'm a big fan of your show, and he loves the advice we give. Question is about retirement calculations. I'm 36 and about 30 years away from retirement. I'm thinking I'm going to retire on 80% of my pre-retirement income. I currently make $150,000 a year now. So in retirement, I'm going to need $120,000. I always like that because it's $10,000 a month. Nice and easy math, right? Let's say I want to withdraw 4% from my investments in order to live on $120,000 a year. He's a minister and he says he's opted out of Social Security, so he cannot rely on that income stream. Okay. So he says, in my portfolio, I'm going to need to accumulate $4.8 million so I can live off the growth while not touching the principal. What about inflation? 120 grand a year in 2050 will have less purchasing power than it has today. So 4.8 million will not be enough. All right, here's the deal. Ready? First of all, you can't use a 4% withdrawal rate. It's too high. So drop it down to 3.5 and probably 3. I would use a 3% withdrawal rate. Number two, when you do any sort of retirement planning, you can plug in your own inflation rate. Mark, what do you want to use for inflation? I'll tell you what I want to use. You're going to use 2. I'm using 2.5. That's it. I think it's going to be 2.5. All right. So it's a safer bet. So you're going to drop down you're going to drop down withdrawal rate to 3%. You're going to bump your inflation rate to 2.5%. And then a magical program is going to tell you how much money you need to accumulate and then back into how much you need to save. That's how you do retirement planning. Pretty easy, actually. The good news is you don't have to do it yourself. What's our favorite retirement calculator these days, Mark? Okay, Mark says the Nerd Wallet retirement calculator is actually pretty easy. Do we have that on the website? That's good because I always like their t-shirts, which says, let's get nerdy. All right, I hope that helps, Josh. If you need some help with your own retirement planning and you've got some issues and you want to come on the air with us, it's really easier to do it in person with you. Just shoot us a note. Go to jillonmoney.com, hit the contact button. And while you're there, check out all the other stuff we do and check out the resource section because that is something that Mark works very hard on. And if you have a retirement calculator that you love, why don't you let us know about it? That would be fantastic. Your input is much valued on this program. Okay, that's it for this segment. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we finish up the program, one more question from Drex. I like that name, Drex. This is interesting. Drex writes, recently we can make after-tax contributions after filling up the 401k. The money then can be rolled over into a Roth IRA. It's a great deal, and I've put in $17,000, which was moved over to my Roth. So this is also called a mega backdoor Roth. Okay. And your plan has to allow it. You can't do it on your own. Yeah. Which, by the way, is also a plan that could be toast if the new Democratic tax plan goes through. So we're going to keep our eye on it. Don't worry. Okay. For some reason, after talking to 3 other financial advisors, CFPs, none of them think it's a good idea. Their reason, let the company put the money in and pull it out later when I'm retired. I'm at a lower tax rate. Makes sense, but my reason is I'm paying tax anyway, whether it goes to a bank or a taxable brokerage account. Why not into a Roth where it's never taxed? What do you think? Thanks and love the book, Drex. Drex, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know how much money you earn, but let's just presume that you earn, I don't know, let's say that Drex is single and earns $600,000 or $700,000, like a ton of money. Even if you're in the highest tax bracket and you're saving a ton of money, some of that money will have to be taxed when you retire. And, you know, you may or may not be in a higher tax bracket unless they think you're going into a much lower tax bracket. I would try this. And I mean, I need more details, but I don't know, Mark. I think that having some money that's already been taxed is great. Mark, you've heard, is already on board. He just loves it. Yeah, Mark says and if it may be going away, that's even more reason to try to take advantage of it. Unless we're missing something, Drex, give us a holler. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. We love you. You are so great to spend some time with us. Our music is composed by Joel Goodman. Mark Talercio is our executive producer. Please lift somebody up today. It will make them feel better. It will make you feel better. And we'll talk to you next week.